Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight, as the room grows quieter and your eyes begin to feel just a little heavier, I want to gently take you far away from the present moment. Tonight, we're drifting back across endless grasslands, riding slowly beneath a vast Mongolian sky, where cold winds whisper across the steppe and time itself seems to breathe more slowly. This is the soft story of the Mongol Empire, not told through loud battles or clashing steel, but through silence, journeys, and quiet endurance. We'll follow the life of a boy named Temüjin, no throne, no land, no crown, who without noise or spectacle laid the foundation for the largest empire the world had ever known. This is not a story meant to wake you up. It's a gentle history for sleep, a calm journey through memory, wind, and wide open land, a timeless history told softly so you can learn without effort and rest without distraction. So before you get comfortable, take a gentle moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if these deep sleep history stories help you find peace, sleep better, or simply reflect on our shared journey through time. Now, close your eyes. Let your shoulders soften. Slow your breathing, and allow the whispers of history to carry you gently into a deep, peaceful sleep.
Before the world ever whispered the name Genghis Khan, before empires trembled and maps were redrawn, there was only the Mongolian steppe, wide and patient, breathing quietly beneath an endless sky. This is where our gentle history for sleep begins, not with conquest, but with wind moving through tall grass, with the soft rhythm of hooves in the distance, and with thin threads of smoke rising from small camps scattered across the open land. At night, the steppe did not shout, it hummed. The wind brushed against felt tents, carrying the scent of ash and milk tea, while stars hung low and steady, as if watching over every quiet breath taken below. In this calm world, far removed from stone cities and crowded streets, a child named Temüjin was born. He did not arrive into power or comfort. He arrived into uncertainty. Temüjin was born into a small Mongol clan where survival depended not on walls or armies, but on memory, loyalty, and the careful reading of the land itself. His father was a minor tribal leader, respected enough to be known, but never powerful enough to be safe. Even as a child, Temüjin learned that the steppe remembered everything, including old grudges and fragile alliances. When his father died suddenly, poisoned by rivals during a journey, the loss did not come with ceremony. It came quietly, like a fire going out in the night. Without his father's protection, Temüjin's family was abandoned by their own people. Friends turned away, promises dissolved. The steppe, once familiar, became vast and indifferent. This was not a story of immediate rage or revenge. It was a story of silence. A mother gathering her children closer against the cold. A young boy learning how hunger feels when it stretches across days instead of hours. Temüjin learned early that loneliness could be louder than war. He learned that being forgotten could be more dangerous than being attacked. And yet, within this isolation, something steady began to form. Not cruelty, but awareness. Not violence, but endurance. The child who would one day be known as Genghis Khan spent long hours watching the horizon, listening to the wind, memorizing the way clouds moved across the open sky. He learned patience before he ever learned command. This gentle history of Genghis Khan is not about shouting armies. It is about a quiet boy on a wide plain, learning to survive one breath at a time. As you listen, let the steppe slow your thoughts. Let the soft rhythm of Mongol history guide you gently toward rest, knowing that this is a story told softly so you can learn and still drift peacefully into sleep.
As Temüjin grew older, the Mongolian steppe continued to shape him quietly, not as a teacher with harsh lessons, but as a constant presence that never hurried and never explained itself. Days passed beneath skies that changed color slowly, from pale morning blue to warm amber evenings, and finally into deep, star-filled nights where silence felt almost alive. In this gentle history for sleep, Mongol history does not rush forward. It moves the way the wind moves across grass, steady and unseen. Temüjin's childhood was marked not by training or instruction, but by observation. He learned to notice which paths animals followed when storms approached, how elders spoke less when trust was fragile, and how alliances could feel solid one season and vanish the next. Hunger remained a familiar companion, yet it no longer frightened him the way it once had. Instead, it taught him awareness. In the absence of protection, Temüjin learned to read people the way others read the sky. He discovered early that power on the steppe was rarely loud. It was quiet, patient, and often invisible. As a young boy, Temüjin experienced betrayal not as a dramatic moment, but as a slow realization. Friends who once shared fires drifted away. Promised support failed to arrive. The steppe did not punish this behavior, it simply recorded it. This gentle telling of Genghis Khan's story does not dwell on anger, it lingers on memory. Temüjin remembered who stood beside him when there was nothing to gain. He remembered who disappeared when survival became difficult. These memories settled into him like stones at the bottom of a river, shaping the current without ever rising to the surface. Even in isolation, Temüjin was not entirely alone. The steppe itself became a companion. Long hours spent watching clouds taught him that endurance mattered more than speed. Listening to the distant calls of animals at night taught him that life continued, even in darkness. Slowly, a quiet confidence grew, not from victories, but from survival itself. This was not ambition yet, it was stability. In Mongol history, many leaders were born into power, but Genghis Khan was formed by absence, by what was missing, by what failed him. And yet, in this emptiness, he learned something essential. Loyalty could not be demanded, only earned. As Temüjin reached his early youth, small connections began to form again, cautiously and without celebration. Shared meals were modest, conversations brief. Trust returned slowly, like grass after a hard winter. There were no grand speeches, no declarations of destiny, only a young man learning how fragile human bonds truly were. This part of Genghis Khan's story is often overlooked, but it matters deeply, because before he united tribes, he learned how easily they could fall apart. Before he commanded loyalty, he understood its cost. In this calm Mongol history for sleep, let yourself rest within this quiet transformation. Let the slow rhythm of the steppe remind you that strength does not always announce itself. Sometimes it grows silently, waiting patiently beneath the surface, just as Temüjin did. There comes a moment in every gentle history where nothing dramatic happens, And yet everything quietly changes. For Temüjin, this moment did not arrive with thunder or celebration. It arrived during ordinary days, beneath familiar skies, when the Mongolian steppe seemed unchanged, even as he himself was slowly becoming someone new. In this soft telling of Mongol history for sleep, we pause here, in the space between childhood and destiny. Temüjin was no longer the abandoned boy, yet he was not a leader either. He existed in between, shaped by years of watching rather than acting. The steppe had taught him how time works, not in sudden turns, but in long, steady stretches. Nights remained calm and vast. Fires burned low. The wind still carried the scent of grass and smoke, wrapping the land in the same rhythm it always had. And yet, Temüjin listened differently now. He noticed how people gathered when they felt safe and how they drifted apart when fear returned. He understood that strength did not come from forcing others to follow, but from becoming someone worth standing beside. This understanding did not make him restless, it made him still. In many stories about Genghis Khan, this quiet phase is skipped, replaced by rapid movement in rising power. But in this gentle history for sleep, it matters deeply. Because before Temüjin ever spoke with authority, he learned how silence could carry weight. Before he made decisions for others, he learned how carefully people watched one another on the steppe. Trust, he realized, was built not through promises, but through consistency, through returning when it would have been easier to leave, through remembering kindness when hardship made forgetting tempting. Temüjin's presence began to feel steady to those around him, not commanding, but reliable. People noticed that he listened more than he spoke, that he did not rush judgment, that he remembered past actions, both good and bad, without needing to mention them. This quiet reputation spread slowly, like dawn light across the plains. No one announced it, it simply happened. The future Genghis Khan was not yet a conqueror, he was a listener, a keeper of memory, someone shaped by absence, now offering steadiness in return. As you rest with this moment, allow the steppe to remain wide and calm in your mind. Let the story of Genghis Khan stay gentle here before history grows louder. This chapter ends not with a beginning, but with readiness, the kind that does not rush forward, but waits patiently, breathing in rhythm with the land. And as the wind continues its quiet journey across the grass, you may find your own thoughts slowing, settling, and drifting softly towards sleep, carried by this calm Mongol history, told gently for rest.
Before there was ever a Mongol Empire, before the name Genghis Khan traveled farther than the horizon, the ancient steppe was already full of movement, memory, and quiet order. In this gentle history for sleep, we drift backward slightly, not to a single person, but to a way of life that shaped everyone who lived upon the grasslands. Tribal Mongolia before Genghis Khan was not a place of borders or cities. It was a living landscape, open and breathing, where people moved with the seasons instead of against them. Families traveled together across the ancient steppe, following the slow rhythm of grass, water, and wind. Their homes were gurs, round felt tents that could be taken down and rebuilt in a single day, always facing the land with patience and respect. Inside, the air carried the soft scent of wool, smoke, and milk. Outside, herds shifted like gentle shadows across the plain. Horses, sheep, and cattle were not symbols of wealth in the modern sense. They were companions, lifelines, and quiet measures of survival. Winter came without apology, stretching long and cold, teaching endurance through stillness. Spring returned carefully, bringing movement back into frozen limbs and reminding the people when it was time to travel again. In this Mongol Empire before Genghis Khan, life did not rush, it repeated. Each season folded into the next, creating a rhythm that soothed the mind and sharpened awareness. At night, when travel paused, fires were lit in careful circles. This is where we invite you to imagine yourself now, seated among them, wrapped in warmth, listening rather than watching. The fire crackled softly, sparks rising like distant stars, while faces around the circle glowed in amber light. Stories were not performed, they were shared. Voices stayed low, shaped by the wind, carrying memories of ancestors, of journeys, of lessons learned from the land itself. In these moments, history lived not in books, but in breath and silence between words. The ancient steppe listened. Tribal life was organized, though never rigid. Clans formed around kinship, trust, and shared survival. Leadership was not permanent. It shifted with circumstance, guided by wisdom, strength, and the ability to protect without demanding obedience. Long before the rise of any empire, the Mongols understood that no one owned the land, they belonged to it. This gentle understanding shaped how disputes were settled, how alliances formed, and how people remembered who they were. As you rest within this calm history for sleep, notice how the world feels slower here. No walls, no crowds, only movement, firelight, and the steady breathing of the steppe. This is the world that existed before Genghis Khan, the quiet foundation beneath the empire that would one day rise. Let yourself remain by the fire a little longer, listening as the ancient steppe carries you gently toward rest. As time passed on the ancient steppe, life in tribal Mongolia continued to follow a rhythm older than memory itself. In this gentle history for sleep, nothing arrives suddenly. The seasons do not announce themselves loudly. They simply shift slowly, patiently, and the people move with them. Winter on the steppe was not an enemy, but a long, quiet teacher. Snow softened the land, muting sound and slowing movement. Gurs were placed carefully to block the wind, fires burned lower, and voices stayed close. Families gathered inward, conserving warmth and energy, listening to the land as much as to one another. Stories during winter nights were fewer but deeper. Silence itself became part of the conversation. In these months, the ancient steppe seemed to breathe more slowly, and so did everyone living upon it. When spring finally arrived, it did not rush in. It crept. Ice loosened its grip. Animals stirred. The people noticed small changes first. Softer ground beneath their feet, longer light in the evening sky, a subtle easing of the cold. This was the signal to prepare for movement. Tribal Mongolia before Genghis Khan was defined not by staying, but by knowing when to go. Camps were dismantled calmly, gurs folded away like memories, ready to return again. The people moved across the steppe as they always had, guided by water, grass, and experience, passed quietly from generation to generation. Children learned by watching, not by instruction. They absorbed the rhythm naturally, just as Temüjin once did. Summer brought openness. The steppe widened, herds spread out, and travel became easier. Days were long, and the sky seemed endless. Yet even in abundance, restraint mattered. The ancient steppe rewarded balance, not excess. People knew that what was taken today affected survival tomorrow. This awareness shaped the Mongol Empire before Genghis Khan more than any rule or law. Life was not governed by written orders, but by memory and shared understanding. As evening returned each day, fires were lit again. Circles formed naturally, just as they had for centuries. This is where we invite you once more into the circle, into the warmth and calm. The firelight flickered gently, casting slow shadows across faces worn by wind and sun. Voices rose and fell like breathing. Stories were told not to impress, but to remember. Tales of ancestors, of journeys gone well and journeys gone wrong, of lessons learned from listening to the steppe rather than trying to control it. In these moments, the past and present blended softly. The ancient steppe held everyone equally. Autumn arrived with quiet certainty. The air cooled, light shortened. Preparations began again, without urgency, without fear. Tribal Mongolia understood cycles. Nothing here was permanent, and nothing was wasted. This calm acceptance shaped the people long before the rise of empire. It created resilience without hardness, discipline without cruelty. In this gentle history for sleep, allow yourself to move through these seasons as if you were there, feeling time slow, thoughts soften, and the steady rhythm of the ancient steppe guide you gently toward rest.
As night settled fully over the ancient steppe, the world of tribal Mongolia became smaller, quieter, and more intimate. Darkness did not feel empty here. It felt full of breath, of memory, of shared presence. In this gentle history for sleep, this is where the ancient steppe speaks most clearly, not through action, but through stillness. Fires burned low and steady, forming careful circles against the vastness of the land. People gathered without instruction, drawn by warmth and familiarity rather than command. This circle of fire was not a place of hierarchy. Elders, adults, and children sat together, wrapped in silence as much as in fur and felt. The flames flickered softly, illuminating hands resting on knees, eyes half closed, faces shaped by years of wind and travel. Stories emerged slowly, as if they were being remembered rather than told. Someone spoke of a winter that lasted longer than expected. Another recalled a journey guided by stars when the path disappeared. These were not heroic tales. They were shared experiences, passed gently from voice to voice, reinforcing the invisible threads that held tribal Mongolia together. In this Mongol Empire before Genghis Khan, memory was the true law. What had happened before guided what came next, who could be trusted, where water could be found, which alliances endured the pressure of scarcity. The ancient steppe listened, holding every word without judgment. Children learned without realizing they were learning. They absorbed the rhythm of speech, the pauses, the importance of listening more than speaking. The firelight reflected in their eyes, marking the moment when belonging took root. This sense of belonging was fragile, yet powerful. It did not come from force, but from repetition, from shared nights like this one. Long before an empire formed, this was how unity felt. Quiet, earned. As the night deepened, conversation faded naturally. No one rushed to fill the silence. The wind passed through the grass beyond the firelight, carrying distant sounds of animals settling for rest.
Above, the stars stretched endlessly, unchanged by human concerns. In this calm history for sleep, notice how the world slows here, how thoughts soften, how the ancient steppe seems to invite rest rather than demand attention. This was the world Temüjin inherited, not an empty land waiting to be conquered, but a living system already balanced by movement, memory, and trust. Tribal Mongolia did not need an empire to exist. It had survived for generations without one. And yet, as the fire burned low, something subtle rested beneath the surface, a readiness, a quiet space where change could one day arrive, not violently, not suddenly, but gradually, shaped by the same rhythms that governed everything else on the steppe. As this chapter closes, remain seated by the fire. Let the warmth linger. Let the ancient steppe hold you gently. The story will continue, but for now, there is nothing to do, nowhere to go. Only the soft crackle of fire, the slow breathing of the land, and the calm awareness that history, like sleep, often begins in silence.
There are moments in history that are loud and unforgettable, and then there are moments so quiet that they almost disappear, even though they change everything. In this gentle history for sleep, the rise of Genghis Khan does not begin with command or victory, but with stillness, restraint, and long nights beneath an unmoving sky. Temüjin's capture did not come with chaos, it came with silence. One day, movement stopped, paths closed, familiar faces became distant. He found himself bound not by anger, but by circumstance. The ancient steppe did not react. The wind continued to pass over grass. Stars continued to rise and fall. Temüjin became a prisoner in a world that did not rush to explain itself. Days passed slowly, nights stretched longer. He learned the weight of waiting, the discipline of observing without acting. This was not weakness, it was preparation, though he did not yet know it. In captivity, Temüjin did not shout against fate. He listened. He watched the way shadows shifted across the ground. He felt the change in air before dawn. He noticed how even guards grew tired, how routines softened attention. The rise of Genghis Khan began here, not as ambition, but as awareness. A quiet power formed, invisible to those who looked only for force. At night, when the world finally grew still, Temüjin lifted his gaze toward the sky. The stars above the ancient steppe were constant, distant, untouched by human struggle. In their calm arrangement, he found steadiness. He did not dream of conquest, he imagined continuity, a future where movement returned, where choice replaced confinement. These thoughts did not burn, they settled, like embers beneath ash, patient and enduring. This is the kind of strength that does not demand attention, it waits. In timeless murmurs carried by the night wind, Temüjin learned that freedom was not only an escape, but a way of thinking. He understood that survival depended on timing as much as courage. The quiet power growing within him was shaped by restraint. When opportunity finally arrived, it was subtle, a moment overlooked, a path left unguarded. Temüjin did not rush. He moved when the steppe itself seemed to allow it. His escape was not dramatic. It was calm, measured, almost gentle. And yet, nothing would ever be the same. As you rest with this part of the story, let your thoughts slow to match the night. Let the ancient steppe remain wide and still in your mind. This is not yet leadership, it is readiness.
The rise of Genghis Khan begins here, in silence, under stars that watch without judgment, carrying you softly toward sleep.
Freedom did not feel sudden when it returned to Temüjin. It felt careful, like the first breath taken after a long stillness. In this gentle history for sleep, the rise of Genghis Khan continues not through triumph, but through adjustment. The ancient steppe welcomed him back without ceremony. Grass bent in the wind as it always had. The sky remained wide and unchanged. And yet, Temüjin moved differently now. He walked with an awareness shaped by confinement, noticing details he once passed without thought. The sound of his own steps, the distance between shadows, the way silence could be both shelter and signal. He did not announce his return. He did not seek attention. Quiet power rarely does. Instead, he observed, he remembered, he chose his moments carefully. At night, beneath the familiar stars, he lay awake, listening to timeless murmurs carried by the wind. These nights were not filled with plans spoken aloud. They were filled with understanding. Temüjin began to see how people responded to calm presence, how fear softened when voices stayed low, how trust emerged not from promises, but from consistency. The rise of Genghis Khan took shape here in small interactions that left no mark on the land, but reshaped relationships quietly. Those who crossed paths with Temüjin noticed something steady about him. He did not hurry, he did not argue, he listened longer than most. When he spoke, his words carried weight, not because they were loud, but because they were rare. This quiet power drew others closer, not through command, but through reassurance. People began to travel with him for practical reasons at first: shared routes, shared safety, shared silence. Over time, these reasons deepened into something more lasting. Loyalty formed slowly, like frost settling on grass at dawn, almost invisible until it covered everything. Temüjin understood something essential about leadership before ever being called a leader. He understood that people follow those who reduce uncertainty, not those who increase it. His presence brought a sense of steadiness to those around him. In a world shaped by movement and risk, this steadiness mattered. The ancient steppe responded in its own way. Paths opened, encounters aligned, not because of destiny announced, but because patience allowed patterns to reveal themselves. In this calm history for sleep, notice how nothing here feels forced. The rise of Genghis Khan is unfolding like night turning into morning, quietly, inevitably, without needing to be named. Temüjin's nights remained reflective. He often looked up at the same stars he had watched in captivity, now from open ground. They reminded him that change did not require haste, that strength could remain gentle, that endurance outlasted impulse. These realizations shaped his choices more than ambition ever could. He moved forward without noise, allowing quiet power to gather around him naturally. As you rest with this part of the story, allow your own thoughts to slow. Let the ancient steppe stretch wide in your mind. This is not conquest, this is alignment. The rise of Genghis Khan continues, carried softly by timeless murmurs, guiding you gently toward deeper rest. There was no single night when Temüjin became a leader. No announcement carried across the steppe. No sudden change in how the wind moved or how the stars appeared. In this gentle history for sleep, the rise of Genghis Khan reaches a quiet turning point, one so subtle that it could easily be missed. People did not gather around Temüjin because he asked them to. They gathered because, over time, they noticed how calm followed him. Where he rested, uncertainty seemed to soften. Where he spoke, confusion eased. This was quiet power in its purest form, never demanding recognition, never hurrying its own arrival. Temüjin continued to live simply, moving with the same rhythms as everyone else. He shared food without keeping count. He listened to disagreements without raising his voice. When choices needed to be made, he waited until the moment felt settled, not urgent. Others began to notice that his patience did not slow progress, it clarified it. In a world shaped by risk and movement, clarity was rare, and therefore valuable. At night, when camps formed and fires were lit, people found themselves sitting closer to him without quite knowing why. Conversations drifted in his direction. Questions were asked softly, then answered with the same care. Temüjin did not offer certainty, he offered steadiness. This steadiness became a quiet shelter, especially for those who had known instability all their lives. The ancient steppe responded in ways that felt natural rather than dramatic. Encounters aligned, small groups merged, paths crossed again and again, not because Temüjin controlled them, but because his presence reduced friction. The rise of Genghis Khan in this telling is not about domination, it is about alignment, the kind that happens when people recognize calm as a form of strength. Temüjin himself remained reflective. Often he looked up at the night sky, the same stars he had studied during captivity. They reminded him that nothing truly lasting was rushed, that leadership, like survival, was something practiced daily, quietly. He understood that authority borrowed its strength from trust, and trust was fragile. It had to be carried gently. This understanding shaped every interaction. When disagreements arose, he did not escalate them. He allowed space. When loyalty was offered, he accepted it without ownership. This restraint deepened respect rather than diminishing it. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, Temüjin became someone others measured themselves against, not through fear, but through example. This is where the rise of Genghis Khan truly takes form, not as a conqueror, but as a center of gravity, a place where people felt oriented rather than commanded. In this calm history for sleep, notice how this leadership feels different from the stories often told. It does not disturb the night, it blends into it. As this chapter comes to a close, let the image of the steppe remain wide and still in your mind. Let the timeless murmurs of wind and fire soften your thoughts. Temüjin's journey continues, but for now, rest in this quiet moment where listening becomes leadership and strength reveals itself without sound, guiding you gently, steadily, toward sleep.
The unification of the Mongol tribes did not begin with a single battle, a single banner, or a single command. In this gentle history for sleep, the Mongol Empire united slowly, almost quietly, shaped not by force alone, but by something far more rare on the ancient steppe: fairness, consistency, and the feeling of belonging. Temüjin understood something that many before him had not. People did not stay loyal because they were defeated. They stayed loyal because they felt seen. As small groups began to travel together, drawn by his calm presence, the steppe itself seemed to widen, allowing space for something new to form. Camps grew larger, not chaotic, but organized by trust rather than fear. At night, the Mongol camp became a world of soft light and steady sound. Hundreds, then thousands of white felt gears rested across the plain like quiet stars fallen to the earth. Fires burned in gentle clusters. The wind moved between tents, carrying the low murmur of voices, the sound of horses settling, the faint crackle of embers. This was not the noise of conquest. It was the sound of a community learning how to exist together. Temüjin did not sit apart from this world. He moved through it. He listened. He watched. He noticed who felt overlooked and who felt uncertain. When resources were shared, they were shared openly. When rewards came, they were divided with care. This simple act changed everything. For the first time, many felt that the steppe did not favor only the powerful. In this early moment of the Mongol Empire united, people began to believe that effort mattered more than birth, that loyalty was valued more than lineage. This belief spread faster than fear ever could. The Great Khan was not yet a title spoken aloud, but the idea of him was forming quietly, carried in the way people spoke about fairness around the fire. Night after night, the camp expanded, not through forceful gathering, but through invitation. Those who arrived were not erased, they were included. Every person had a place. Every skill mattered. Herds were protected together. Children slept safely within circles of light. Elders shared memory without being silenced. This balance created a calm strength that settled over the camp like a warm cloak. In this calm history for sleep, notice how unity here does not feel loud. It feels steady. The ancient steppe, once divided by countless small loyalties, began to breathe together. The unification of the Mongol tribes was not complete, but its shape was visible now, glowing softly beneath the stars, guiding the people gently toward rest and toward something larger than themselves.
What kept the tribes together was not fear of punishment, but the calm certainty that life within the camp felt more balanced than life outside. In this gentle history for sleep, the Mongol Empire united because people discovered that fairness could be a shelter as real as any tent. Temüjin paid close attention to the small moments that decided whether someone stayed or drifted away. He noticed how disputes grew tired when they were not fed by favoritism. He saw how trust returned when decisions followed clear patterns rather than sudden moods. The camp learned a new rhythm, one that did not erase old identities but gave them space to rest side by side. Rewards were not hoarded, they were measured, shared in ways that felt visible and understandable. This transparency quieted suspicion. People slept more deeply, knowing the morning would not bring surprise losses. Over time, this predictability became comfort. As the nights passed, the camp took on a steady glow. Fires marked paths between gurs. Lanterns flickered softly near tethered horses. The wind carried familiar sounds, footsteps on grass, low voices, the gentle movement of animals settling for rest. These sounds formed a lullaby of belonging. Children fell asleep quickly. Elders spoke less, not because they were unheard, but because they felt secure. In these quiet hours, the idea of the Great Khan began to settle into shared understanding, not as a distant ruler, but as a steady presence whose choices reduced uncertainty. People stayed because staying felt easier than leaving. The ancient steppe did not feel conquered, it felt coordinated. In this calm history for sleep, notice how unity here does not require constant attention. It sustains itself through habit, through fair sharing, through the quiet knowledge that effort will be recognized and memory respected. When disagreements arose, they did not fracture the camp. They slowed, softened, and found resolution without spectacle. This restraint protected relationships. The Mongol Empire united not through forceful sameness, but through dependable structure. As you rest with this part of the story, let the night remain gentle. Let the steady camp sounds soften your thoughts. This is how unity lasts, by making people feel safe enough to sleep.
By the time the steppe
fully accepted what had formed, unity no longer felt new. It felt natural, like something that had always been waiting beneath the surface. In this gentle history for sleep, the Mongol Empire united reveals itself not through banners or proclamations, but through a quiet scene at night, when the land finally rests. The camp stretches farther than the eye can follow, thousands of white felt tents resting across the plain, arranged with calm intention. From above, they resemble a constellation fallen gently to earth. Fires glow softly between them, not roaring but steady, marking paths and gathering places. The wind moves through the camp without resistance, carrying familiar sounds, the low murmur of conversation fading into silence, the rhythmic breathing of horses, the soft crackle of embers settling into ash. This is not the noise of a world preparing for war. It is the sound of a world that feels held together. People sleep without fear of sudden change. They rest knowing that their place will still be there in the morning. This sense of security is rare, and it changes how dreams feel. Somewhere within the camp, Temüjin moves quietly, not elevated, not hidden, simply present. He does not need to remind anyone who he is. The unity speaks for him. In moments like this, the idea of the great Khan begins to exist without needing to be spoken. It lives in the way disputes have grown smaller, in how rewards are shared evenly, in how effort has meaning beyond lineage. The ancient steppe, once divided into countless loyalties, now breathes as one body. In this calm history for sleep, notice how this unity does not feel fragile. It is reinforced nightly by habit, by fairness repeated until it becomes expectation. The camp is not perfect, but it is stable, and stability allows rest. Children sleep deeply. Elders close their eyes knowing their memory matters. The wind passes over the tents as it always has, unchanged, yet now moving across something larger than before. The Mongol Empire united is not a sudden creation. It is a quiet agreement renewed each night under the stars. As the fires burn lower and the camp settles into silence, the steppe itself seems to acknowledge the shift. Nothing dramatic happens, no moment demands attention, and yet the foundation of an empire is already complete. As this chapter comes to rest, allow the image of the 1,000 white tents to remain in your mind. Let the gentle wind, the distant firelight, and the steady calm of the unified steppe soften your thoughts. The story will continue, but for now, this is a place of rest, where unity feels warm, leadership feels distant yet reassuring, and sleep arrives naturally, carried on the quiet breath of the ancient land.
The expansion of the Mongol Empire did not feel like a sudden wave when it began. In this gentle history for sleep, it felt more like the slow movement of clouds across a wide sky, steady and unhurried, changing the light without disturbing the air. The unified steppe did not rush outward. It breathed, and then it moved. Westward first, following paths that had existed long before any banner was raised. The sound that accompanied this movement was not shouting, but rhythm, the soft, repeating beat of hooves on open ground, the creak of saddles settling, the quiet coordination of people who had learned to travel together. Days passed beneath skies that shifted gradually in color. Blue stretched paler in the mornings, evenings deepened into amber and then into soft gray.
At night, camps formed and dissolved like constellations, appearing briefly before returning to darkness. This is how the expansion of the Mongol Empire unfolds when told softly, as a journey rather than a conquest. As the travelers moved farther from the familiar grasslands, the air began to change. Winds carried different scents. Earth felt heavier beneath foot. Languages heard at a distance flowed with unfamiliar rhythms, gentle and curious rather than threatening. Temüjin, now known quietly as the Great Khan, did not stand apart from these sensations. He observed them. He allowed them to pass through the camp like weather, noticed but not resisted. In this history for sleep, the westward movement is not defined by destinations, but by transitions. Rivers widened, roads hardened, nights grew cooler or warmer depending on the land. The people learned to listen again, as they had always done on the steppe. Horses adjusted their pace. Fires were built lower or higher. Food tasted slightly different. These details mattered more than names on maps. They grounded the journey in sensation rather than urgency. The expansion of the Mongol Empire continued like a long breath exhaled slowly. No single moment demanded attention. Instead, the road itself became the story. Camps at night were calm, familiar despite the distance traveled. White tents glowed softly beneath foreign stars. Voices stayed low. Sleep arrived easily, carried by the certainty of routine. This is the tone of campaigns told softly, movement without alarm, change without chaos. As you listen, allow your thoughts to move with the same steadiness. Let the clouds pass overhead. Let the road extend gently into rest.
As the long roads continued, the expansion of the Mongol Empire gradually turned southward, not as a sharp change of direction, but as a gentle curve in the journey, like clouds drifting toward warmer air. In this history for sleep, the movement feels softer here, slower, carried by curiosity rather than urgency. The land began to breathe differently. The grass grew shorter, then richer. The wind carried new scents, earth warmed by sun, unfamiliar plants, smoke from distant settlements that lingered gently in the evening air. These were not signals of alarm, they were quiet invitations to notice change. The horses sensed it first, adjusting their pace as ground softened beneath their hooves. The riders followed naturally, letting the road guide them without forcing it. Days unfolded under skies that held more warmth. Light lingered longer. Shadows softened. Nights no longer carried the sharp edge of cold, but a calm heaviness that settled gently over camp. Fires were built differently now, smaller and closer together. Food tasted subtly changed, seasoned by new surroundings. Voices in nearby towns flowed with different rhythms, rising and falling in patterns unfamiliar but soothing. In this history for sleep, the expansion of the Mongol Empire moves like a slow river, widening without turbulence. The land accepted movement that respected its rhythm. People adjusted without fear. The road itself became a gentle teacher. As you listen, allow your thoughts to drift with the same ease. Let warmer air soften your breathing. Let the sense of travel remain calm, as if carried by clouds that know exactly where they are going, even when you do not.
Eventually, the long roads began to feel less like destinations and more like memories forming in real time. In this gentle history for sleep, the expansion of the Mongol Empire softens further, losing its edges, becoming something closer to a dream than an event. The movement that once felt purposeful now feels familiar, almost routine, as if the land itself has accepted the travelers and folded them gently into its rhythm. West and south no longer feel like directions. They feel like layers of experience drifting slowly across the mind. The sound of hooves blends into the wind. Languages once unfamiliar begin to sound recognizable, even comforting. Scents that were new now feel expected, arriving quietly with dusk and fading again by morning. Nights grow indistinguishable from one another in the most peaceful way. Camps rise and settle with practiced ease. White tents glow faintly, then dim, like thoughts dissolving before sleep fully arrives. Fires burn low, more for warmth than gathering. Voices drift into silence without effort. In this history for sleep, campaigns are no longer something to follow closely. They are something to float within. Temüjin, the great Khan, does not press forward. He allows movement to complete itself. He understands that expansion does not always require motion. Sometimes it requires rest. The expansion of the Mongol Empire, told softly, becomes a series of gentle impressions rather than milestones. The sky changes above different lands, but its vastness remains the same. Stars appear slightly altered in arrangement, yet equally distant, equally calm. They offer continuity where the ground has shifted. This constancy steadies the mind. It allows sleep to deepen. The people traveling sense this too. Their bodies remember the rhythm even when their thoughts drift. Saddles feel familiar. Even the road's uncertainty loses its weight. What once demanded attention now simply exists. Like clouds that have crossed half the sky, the journeys leave no strain behind, only quiet passage. In this final part of the chapter, allow the roads to blur. Let the idea of expansion rest without detail. This is history for sleep, where motion becomes stillness, and stillness becomes rest. The expansion of the Mongol Empire fades gently into the background, like a story already told and remembered, leaving space for calm, for breath, for sleep to arrive fully and without interruption.
When the movement finally slowed, when the roads grew quiet and the camps settled into familiarity, something else began to shape the Mongol world from within. In this gentle history for sleep, we turn away from motion and toward stillness, toward a system that did not shout its presence, but whispered it carefully into place. The Yassa was never announced in crowded squares. It was not carved into stone. It moved softly, passed from voice to voice among trusted leaders, carried like a shared understanding rather than a written command. In the Mongol camp, order did not feel imposed. It felt natural, as if the land itself had agreed to it. Everyone knew where they belonged, not because they were told loudly, but because the rhythm of daily life made it clear. Tents were placed with intention, paths between them formed naturally. Horses were tethered at respectful distances, close enough to hear one another breathe, far enough to remain calm. Fires were lit in familiar patterns, then allowed to fade slowly, embers glowing long after conversation ended. This quiet structure created safety. When night arrived, there was no confusion. Children slept where warmth gathered. Elders rested where voices were nearby. Guards moved without urgency, guided by habit rather than alarm. The Yassa shaped these moments gently. It reminded people that discipline did not need to feel harsh. It could feel reassuring, predictable, like the stars returning to the same places in the sky. In this history for sleep, notice how calm grows when everything has a place. The Mongol order did not demand constant attention. It held the camp together, even as minds drifted toward rest. This was its quiet strength. As the fires dimmed and the wind softened, the whispered law continued to work, unseen but deeply felt, allowing sleep to arrive without fear. As darkness settled fully over the camp, the whispered law revealed its quiet genius through routine rather than instruction. In this gentle history for sleep, the Yassa does not appear as a list of rules, but as a feeling of alignment, where every movement finds its place and then becomes still. People did not ask where to sleep, they already knew. Families gathered where the ground felt familiar beneath their feet. Elders rested where the fire's warmth lingered longest. Those tasked with watching the perimeter moved softly, tracing paths they had walked so many times that the ground itself seemed to guide them. Horses were tethered with care, facing directions that kept them calm, close enough to hear one another, never crowded. The sound of leather settling and rope tightening blended into the night, then faded. Fires were tended deliberately. Larger flames gave way to smaller ones. Sparks dimmed. Ash settled. This slow extinguishing was not an ending, but a signal to rest. The camp responded as one body, without urgency. The Yassa lived in this shared understanding. It shaped behavior without needing to be seen. In this gentle history for sleep, notice how predictability softens the mind. When the future feels known, even for a single night, the body relaxes. The Mongol order provided this gift repeatedly. Night after night, the same patterns returned. No one needed to wonder if chaos would arrive with darkness. Order arrived instead, gently. The wind moved freely through the camp, unobstructed by confusion. Sounds diminished naturally, voices lowered, footsteps slowed. Even thoughts seemed to align with the quiet structure. Temüjin understood that such order did not restrict freedom, it protected it. By knowing where everything belonged, people could release vigilance. Sleep became possible, not because danger vanished, but because trust replaced fear. This is the heart of the Yassa as felt rather than written. It turned discipline into comfort. In this calm history for sleep, allow the image of the camp at rest to settle in your mind. Let the horses breathe evenly. Let the last embers glow faintly. Let the night hold everything gently in place, guiding you toward deeper rest.
As the final embers dimmed and the camp slipped fully into stillness, the Yassa no longer felt like law at all. In this gentle history for sleep, it became something quieter, something closer to silence itself. There were no voices enforcing it, no gestures reminding anyone to comply. The order held because it had been repeated so often that it no longer required effort. The night understood it. The land understood it. People understood it without thinking. Paths between tents rested empty, not because movement was forbidden, but because movement was no longer needed. Horses stood calmly, their heads low, breath slow and even, as if listening to the same quiet rhythm that guided the camp. The air carried no tension. It moved freely, cool and soft, brushing past fabric and skin alike. This is where the Yassa completed its work, not by controlling the night, but by allowing the night to be safe. In this history for sleep, notice how deeply rest settles when nothing feels uncertain. No one wonders where to be. No one wonders what will happen next. The future for these hours is known. It is simply sleep. Temüjin rests somewhere within the camp, indistinguishable from the calm he helped shape. There is no separation between leader and order now. The structure has become shared, impersonal, enduring. This is the true strength of the Mongol order. It does not depend on presence. It remains even in absence. As stars hold their positions above, the camp mirrors them below, fixed, predictable, gentle. The Yassa is no longer a rule whispered among commanders. It is a pattern breathed into the night. In this calm history for sleep, allow that pattern to guide your own thoughts. Let the idea of everything being in its place soften your mind. Let vigilance fade. Let trust take its place. The camp sleeps, protected not by walls, but by understanding. And as this chapter closes, the silence itself stands guard, inviting you to rest deeply, knowing that nothing needs to be watched anymore.
As the years gathered softly behind him, Genghis Khan did not announce his aging. In this gentle history for sleep, it arrives the way dusk does on the steppe, gradually, without urgency, without resistance. The man once known as Temüjin now moves more slowly, not because his will has faded, but because the world around him has grown heavier with memory. He rests within a simple tent, its felt walls breathing quietly with the wind. Outside, the vast land continues its rhythm, unchanged. Horses shift their weight, grass bends and rises again. The sky lowers into softer colors. Inside the tent, the air is still. Each breath feels deliberate, unhurried. The wind passes over the canvas like a familiar voice, carrying echoes that sound like earlier years returning gently. In this moment, the legacy of Genghis Khan does not feel loud or vast. It feels intimate. The power that once moved entire regions now rests within a single, quiet space. He listens more than he speaks. He allows silence to fill the pauses. There is no need to reflect aloud. The memories arrive on their own. The scent of smoke recalls nights on the open steppe. The faint creak of leather brings back long journeys beneath changing skies. These are not sharp memories. They are softened by time, rounded like stones shaped by water. In this timeless history, the end of a life does not feel like an ending. It feels like a slowing. Temüjin remembers the boy he once was, not with regret, but with distance. He sees the child walking across endless grass, learning early that survival required patience, that loneliness could be endured, that strength did not always announce itself. These lessons carried him forward, quietly, through years that reshaped the world. Now, as the great Khan rests, those same lessons return, completing a circle. The tent holds him gently. The wind continues its steady passing. Nothing demands attention. Everything is allowed to be. In this history for sleep, let this stillness guide your thoughts. Let the image of the quiet tent at dusk soften your breathing. The story is not finished, but it has slowed enough to rest.
As the evening deepened,
Memory no longer arrived in clear scenes, but in fragments that floated gently like dust caught in light. In this gentle history for sleep, the legacy of Genghis Khan is not reviewed as a list of achievements, but as a long movement that has finally slowed enough to be felt. The wind outside the tent continues its quiet passing, and with each soft breath of air, moments from earlier years rise and fade. Temüjin does not try to hold them. He lets them come as they wish. A boy learning to read the land by the way grass bends. A young man discovering that trust can travel farther than fear. A leader realizing that order can be kinder than chaos. These memories do not arrive with pride. They arrive with calm acceptance. In this timeless history, a life is not measured by how loudly it was lived, but by how steadily it moved forward. The body rests now, heavier than before, but the mind remains untroubled. There is no sense of urgency. The world beyond the tent feels distant, as if wrapped in the same softness as the evening sky. The great Khan's breathing matches the rhythm of the wind, in and out, slow, even. The journey that once crossed continents now circles inward. The vastness of the steppe condenses into simple sensations: warmth, fabric, air, quiet. This is how memory prepares to sleep. It releases detail and keeps only feeling. In this history for sleep, the story of Genghis Khan becomes less about empire and more about endurance, about how a life shaped by movement can eventually find stillness without resistance. The past does not press for attention. It settles beside him, like an old companion who no longer needs words. The legacy of Genghis Khan exists here, not in monuments or borders, but in the calm continuity of breath, in the knowledge that the path has been walked fully. As the night grows deeper, even memory begins to thin, drifting outward again, carried by the same wind that once guided him across open land. Nothing is forced to remain. Everything is allowed to fade gently. In this timeless history, that is enough. Let this quiet review soften your thoughts. Let the sense of completion ease your body toward rest. As night completes its gentle descent, there is no moment that announces itself as the last. In this gentle history for sleep, the end does not arrive with sound or signal. It arrives the way deep sleep does, gradually, without resistance, as awareness softens and the world narrows to breath in presence. Inside the quiet tent, the air remains calm. The felt walls hold warmth. The wind outside continues its steady passage, the same wind that once carried footsteps across endless grass and now carries only silence. Genghis Khan does not speak. There is nothing left to explain. The life that began as Temüjin has moved through its seasons, and like the land itself, it has learned how to rest. The body lies still, not rigid, but settled, as if aligning naturally with the ground beneath. Breathing remains slow, even, almost indistinguishable from the movement of the night. In this timeless history, the legacy of Genghis Khan does not press forward. It recedes gently, like the horizon at dusk, leaving space rather than weight. The steppe outside does not change in response. Grass bends and lifts again. Stars hold their positions. Horses remain calm. Order continues without instruction. This is not absence, it is continuity. The circle that began with a child listening to the wind now closes with a man who has become part of it. There is no fear in this closing, no urgency, only completion. The memories that once drifted now settle fully, even thought grows quiet. The mind releases the need to follow a story. It rests in sensation alone. Warmth, air, stillness. In this history for sleep, notice how peace arrives when nothing asks to be held. The legacy of Genghis Khan remains, but it no longer needs a voice. It lives in patterns already set, in order that no longer requires enforcement, in a world that continues to breathe steadily. As the night deepens further, the final separation between self and land dissolves. The steppe keeps the breath, the wind keeps the silence, and sleep, unbroken and complete, arrives without ceremony, carrying the story gently into rest.
Long after the hooves fell silent and the great tents disappeared from the horizon, the Mongol Empire did not truly leave the world. In this gentle history for sleep, its legacy lingers not as a monument or a name, but as movement that continued even after power faded. Roads once traveled by armies became paths for merchants. Routes that had been dangerous grew quieter, safer, steadier. Along these long stretches of land, the Silk Road breathed more easily, carrying silk, spices, letters, and ideas across distances that once felt impossible. The expansion of the Mongol Empire reshaped space itself, not by walls, but by connection. Messengers rode with purpose, knowing the way ahead was protected by shared order rather than force. Maps grew more confident. Knowledge traveled farther than any single ruler ever could. In this timeless history, the empire's greatest reach was not measured by borders, but by how far trust could move. Cultures met without needing to collide. Languages brushed against one another, exchanging words that still remain embedded today. Paper carried thoughts across continents. Stories traveled faster than armies ever had. Even as the empire slowly fragmented, these pathways did not vanish. They remained, quietly woven into the world's structure. In this history for sleep, notice how legacy feels different from presence. Presence demands attention. Legacy does not. It continues without asking to be remembered. The Mongol Empire faded as all empires do, but the order it introduced allowed others to move more freely afterward. Trade flourished, knowledge spread. Time itself seemed to soften its resistance to distance. Standing at this point in the story, there is no need to trace every outcome. It is enough to feel the continuity. The wind that once carried commands now carries only movement. The steppe remains open. The routes remain visible to those who know where to look. As the story slows again, allow these images to settle. Paths stretching beyond sight, letters folded and passed hand to hand, quiet exchanges beneath wide skies. This is how the legacy of the Mongol Empire rests in the world, not loudly, but steadily, waiting to be felt rather than studied.
Now, as the story reaches its quiet end, imagine yourself standing once more on the open steppe. There are no camps behind you, no roads ahead that need to be followed. Only the land, wide and patient, and the wind moving steadily across it. In this gentle history for sleep, the legacy of the Mongol Empire no longer asks to be explained. It is simply present, like the horizon that stretches without urgency. The sky begins to darken gradually, colors fading into one another without sharp edges. The wind carries no commands now, no messages to deliver. It carries only air, cool and even, brushing past your face, reminding you that movement does not always mean progress. Sometimes it means release. The traces of the empire remain around you, not as ruins, but as pathways embedded in the world. Lines of travel that still guide merchants, words still shared between languages, borders shaped quietly by centuries of motion. This timeless history has already done its work. There is nothing left to hold on to. You can feel how distance softens everything it touches, how time smooths even the largest events into something gentle enough to rest beside. The steppe does not judge what came before, it accepts it, then allows it to pass. As darkness deepens, stars appear one by one, not demanding attention, simply taking their places. The wind steadies. Your breathing follows it naturally, slow and even. In this gentle history for sleep, notice how the mind begins to loosen its grip on detail. Names fade, dates drift away. What remains is sensation, space, calm. The legacy of the Mongol Empire continues, but it no longer needs your awareness. It exists whether you watch it or not. And now you do not need to watch anything. The story has reached a place where listening becomes unnecessary. You can let history move farther away, becoming part of the background, like a distant landscape seen just before sleep. The wind continues to pass, the steppe remains, and you are allowed to rest. As the voice grows quieter, remember that nothing more is required of you tonight. You can allow the past to fade gently, knowing it has settled where it belongs. Let your thoughts slow. Let your body grow heavy. Let sleep arrive naturally, deep and uninterrupted, carried softly on the wind of the open land.